something different with our audio today, and we just found out that they're not sitting for question period today. So we do have videos lined up. We're ready to go. Something different with our audio today, and we just found out that see, we're trying to figure things out. There's going to be interruptions and things like that. We're going to jump into this first piece, which is going to be Stephen Guilbeault talking his, doing what Stephen Guilbeault does. And we're jumping in right away to check that out. Let's, we're going to back that up. Take a peek.
Nos distingués invités, et merci d'être parmi nous ici à Ottawa en ce jour de la Terre et que nous commençons la 4e session du Comité intergouvernemental de négociation sur la pollution plastique. Je voudrais remercier le chef algonquin Dylan Whitehawk de Kitigan-Zibi ainsi que Elder Sarrazin pour leurs paroles inspirantes. J'ai l'honneur de partager ce moment avec Inger Anderson, directrice exécutive du Programme des Nations Unies pour l'environnement, Luis Vallas Valdivieso, président du Comité intergouvernemental de négociation, et le Dr Adil Najam, président du Fonds mondial pour la nature. Je souhaite également remercier le Fonds mondial pour avoir accepté d'organiser ces 2 jours de partenariat avec nous. I acknowledge that we are on the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, who for generations have been stewards of this land. I recognize their enduring presence, resilience, and honor their contributions to our shared community, past, present, and future. And Chief, I would like to offer my condolences to you and your community for your loss. Colleagues, there is a reason why we're all gathered here today. As we begin our work for INC4, the oceans and land we're committed to protect are choking with plastic. We produce, buy, use, and throw away plastic irresponsibly and unsustainably. Plastic pollution is found in every corner of our planet. We are breathing, drinking, and eating it. We know there is another way. Tackling this global crisis requires a renewed sense of commitment and a stronger partnerships between us all. It calls for new, ambitious action to stop global plastic production and waste from tripling by 2060. Let me share 3 reflections with you. First, success for me is adopting a global deal that speaks to people's needs and aspirations. Over the past 30 years, I have participated in the adoption of groundbreaking and historic international agreements. Yes, multilateralism can sometimes seem long and tedious, but it works when everyone feels represented. That's what we did when we adopted the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework and months later, the High Seas Treaty, or BBNJ, and the UAE Consensus at COP28 last year. This plastic crisis, just like climate change and loss of biodiversity, affects each community differently. And developing nations, indigenous peoples, and marginalized communities often bear disproportionate impacts. That's why we must ensure that, as we negotiate collective actions, these will address social and environmental injustices, prioritize the full participation of Indigenous peoples, and protect their rights. Second, we have a once-in-a-generation moment to finalize this international agreement. I'm glad that our closed-door meeting yesterday, Ministerial reaffirmed our commitment to land this deal this year. We have the solutions to meet this challenge. That's why this deal needs to be transparent and include measures to mobilize financial support from all sources. And it requires that everyone fulfills their respective obligations. Here at INC4, we reconfirm our intention to address fully the life cycle of plastics, from production to disposal, such as eliminating or restricting problematic and avoidable plastic products and chemicals of concerns, and developing design criteria or other targeted actions to make certain that the plastic we do produce and use can be safely recycled, remanufactured, and reused. It means improving the end-of-life management of plastics and action to reduce the release of plastics into the environment. My third reflection is that we can drive momentum by taking action at home. That's why today, on Earth Day, I'm pleased to announce the release of the Federal Plastics Registry. This important demonstration of Canada's commitment to end pollution and build a circular economy. The registry will require plastic producers to take more responsibility for the plastic they put on the market. Every year, from now on, they must declare the quantity and types of plastic they supply, how these plastics move through the economy, and how they are managed at the end of their life. The registry will provide critical information to measure progress, identifying gaps, and building a truly circular economy. Aujourd'hui, le Canada franchit une étape importante dans son plan pour mettre fin à la pollution plastique et bâtir une économie circulaire, alors que nous lançons le registre fédéral sur les plastiques. Ce registre obligera les fabricants de plastique à assumer une plus grande responsabilité pour les plastiques qu'ils mettent sur le marché. Chaque année, à partir de maintenant, ils devront déclarer la quantité et les types de plastique qu'ils mettent en marché au pays, la façon dont ces produits circulent dans notre économie et la façon dont ils gèrent leurs produits en fin de vie. Le registre fournira les renseignements nécessaires à la réalisation de notre plan, mesurer les progrès accomplis et identifier les lacunes de la chaîne de valeur du plastique. Notre message est simple. Le Canada est déterminé à accélérer ses efforts domestiques et internationaux pour répondre à la crise actuelle de la pollution plastique. Nous faisons notre part en prenant des mesures ambitieuses, notamment avec le lancement de la charte sur les plastiques sur les océans dans notre présidence du G7 en 2018 et un investissement de 100 millions de dollars pour aider les pays en voie de développement à améliorer la gestion des plastiques et lutter contre cette pollution. Notre adhésion à la coalition pour la haute ambition pour éradiquer la pollution plastique et le lancement tout récent de l'Alliance des pays hôtes. Notre plan se fonde sur des preuves scientifiques et évolue au fur et à mesure que nous menons des recherches et investissons dans la science afin d'éclairer les
Kelly, Jill, what's up, girls? How are you?
Le Canada prend des mesures pour prévenir la pollution plastique.
Kitty, sorry, Katie. What's up?
Articles en plastique nocifs à usage unique, en prévenant et en enlevant les engins de pêche perdus et en améliorant la fabrication, l'utilisation et la gestion des plastiques afin de les maintenir dans l'économie et hors de notre environnement. Aujourd'hui, je réitère à quel point le succès de nos efforts dépendra de la puissance et de l'efficacité de nos partenariats et de reconnaître l'importance cruciale de la diversité des points de vue et de la participation. C'est pourquoi notre délégation comprend des représentants des provinces et des territoires du Canada, ainsi que des organisations nationales autochtones. I've been asking everyone for the past 2 days that question: how would they define success here at INC4? The key indicator for me is that our action must reflect conviction, ambition, and hope. Together, we can move forward to make a difference for generations to come. I look forward to today's discussion, as well as this week's progress, as we prepare to finish this at INC5 later this year. I'm determined, and I know that we will forge an historic milestone to end plastic pollution. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you.
All right, gang, sorry, that's a bit of a poor video to start off with, but we have got some awesome things to show. Like, today's show, we caught it by surprise, like, not that long ago, that there wasn't going to be a question period. So we have some things to show today that are, I think, pretty interesting. So let's get into the next piece.
Give us your reflections on the big housing rollout of the last couple of weeks? What was in the budget
go.
yesterday?
My best advice to Canadians would be don't hold your breath. In 2017, Justin Trudeau stood in front of a large building project with lots of hardworking Canadians behind him and promised a life-changing, transformational national housing strategy, and we see the transformation. House prices have doubled, rent has doubled, mortgage rates have doubled. People can't afford to put food on their table and pay the rent. And now he promises the most ambitious plan ever. I wouldn't hold my breath, and I wouldn't take the bait this time because these guys are very good at the photo op. They're very good at all the right words. You even see the Minister of Housing now using really great YIMBY language. Proof's always in the pudding, though. They don't get the job done.
What do you think about the number of programs to sell some government buildings? What do you think about that?
We'll start here. The number of programs is just more of their political speak and their talking points. Yeah, and all great YIMBY language. It's all great language. But they won't get the job done. They never do. And in fact, now all of the stuff they're doing to borrow money now to create more debt and to try to spend more money, they believe they can spend their way out of a debt problem. They're actually making the materials you need to build the homes more expensive.
En français, est-ce que vous risquez quelques mots là-dessus sur le logement, M. Chisholm? Est-ce que vous avez l'impression, si je comprends bien là, vos déclarations en anglais, que le gouvernement Trudeau fait des annonces, mais qu'il ne va pas suivre et qu'il n'y aura pas en réalité des logements qui vont être construits?
My French isn't that good. I didn't catch all of that, sorry.
So what are your thoughts on it in French?
So you want me to do it in French as well? No, I probably can't do it off the cuff, sorry.
Do you? I mean, the government is spending a lot of money on housing. Is that the right focus for the federal government to get, generally, not this government?
He shut down the French. That was pretty
The solution
funny.
to the housing crisis in this country is a classically small C conservative solution.
I don't
It's less
speak
government.
French.
We need to get, as Pierre says, the local gatekeepers out of the way. The process required to build a house, the long, painful, expensive approvals process to get a home built in this country is precisely what's wrong with the system. And it's wrong at every level of government. We have too much government, and this Trudeau government just keeps adding layers and layers of bureaucracy and costs. That's making everything more expensive, especially housing. Fundamentally, these guys don't get it. They think they can spend their way out of a multi-trillion-dollar crisis. We can't do that. We need to get out of the way. These guys don't understand it. Canadians can't afford these guys. Thanks very much.
Good morning.
Oh, Barrett's going to light it up.
Today,
Barrett always does.
Having heard this week that the procurement watchdog had found that the Trudeau government had stacked their rules in favor of a favorite firm, McKinsey & Company, where Conservatives have long said that Justin Trudeau had been favoring this firm with its close ties with Dominic Barton and Justin Trudeau. This is with the backdrop of the Arrive scam events that are unfolding today. Now, the context is really important because after 8 years of Justin Trudeau, insiders seems to be the only ones who are getting ahead. We see that with McKinsey, and the Auditor General reports and Procurement Ombudsman reports that we've seen have laid this out very clearly. Just like McKinsey has been favored, so too has GC Strategies been favored. It was revealed that they were allowed to write a $25 million contract to the exclusion of all other bidders, and of course they were successful in being awarded that $25 million contract. So we've had hearings on this at Parliamentary.
Hey Charlene, what's up?
And the head of GC Strategies, Mr. Firth, refused to answer questions about his role in Justin Trudeau's $60 million Arrive scam. Why have the Liberals made Mr. Firth their favorite, making him a millionaire, while other companies have had to do without or not been successful in their bids? We even heard testimony from KPMG, a firm with 10,000 employees in Canada.
What's up, Dive from Canada? How you doing, Steve? Good to see you.
Official, that if
Always.
they wanted to work on the $60 million Arrive scam, that they would have to be a subcontractor to the two guys working out of their basement, GC Strategies. This, of course, doesn't make any sense. And so this is why we put the questions to Mr. Firth. What did he give to the Liberals to earn this favor that he has received? Now, of course, he refused to answer questions, and the House of Commons has found him in contempt. Today, he will be admonished following that finding of contempt, and he will have to answer questions. And this is what common sense Conservatives have been pressing for all along, answers for Canadians. This is why we put forward a motion to have the Auditor General investigate the $60 million Justin Trudeau scandal that Justin Trudeau and every one of his ministers and every one of his members voted against that Auditor General audit. So while they're trying to cover up for corruption from a tired government, that after 8 years it's very clear that they're not in it for everyday Canadians, but instead in it just for the elite and Ottawa insiders, Common Sense Conservatives are pressing for answers, and today we're going to continue that pursuit with our questions of Mr. Firth, and I look forward to your questions following his appearance this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Okay,
thought about or promote
we're gonna, what are we doing next?
to the companies.
Oh, Lord.
Okay, one of
We've
the,
got a mess here, guys. Let's bring this back in. All right, so that's a very interesting piece, too. And now we're going to take a peek at some of the committee investigation into these things that have been happening with Canada Air. You've probably heard about this, like in the past. This is some pretty interesting testimony that we have here. Things are wild in Canada, guys. Let's see, like, if you can identify with this person that's giving their testimony. It's a lot. Let's...
things is when you get on and there's that flat screen in front of you when you sit on it.
For being here today.
Here we go. Oh, no.
Earlier on in the testimony from Air Canada, they had
Okay, we're scrapping that one.
0.15%.
We're scrapping that idea because that video is not playing the right way. Here we go. This should be pretty fun.
I'd like to pay the Minister of Finance a compliment for a page in her speech that I thought was extremely illustrative. And I'm going to quote verbatim. I would like Canada's 1%, Canada's 0.1%, to consider this. What kind of Canada do you want to live in? Well, before I go any further, let's point out the incredible irony that, as she and her leader point out, Canada's 0.1% are doing better than ever after 9 years of the Prime Minister promising to go after them. Yes, they have benefited from the tens of billions of dollars of undeserved corporate welfare handouts and grants, ironically supported by the NDP, of corporate loan guarantees that protect them against losses in cases of incompetence or dishonest bidding, of contracts of which there are now $21 billion granted to outside and highly paid consultants, many of them making millions of dollars a year in taxpayer contracts for work that could be done inside the government itself, if that work is of any value at all. And finally, those grand fortunes that have been inflated by $600 billion of inflationary money printing that have transferred wealth from the working class to the wealthiest among us. That 0.1% is doing better than ever after 9 years of the Prime Minister pretending that he would get tough on them. But let me go on, I'm interrupting myself. Do you want to live in a country, she asks, where you can tell the size of someone's paycheck by their smile? Wow. How many Canadians are smiling when they look at their paycheck today? Madam Speaker, people are not smiling at all because a paycheck cannot buy you a basket of affordable food. According to Sylvain Charlebois, the food professor, he has said that the cost of a basket of food has gone up by thousands of dollars per year, but that the majority of Canadians are spending hundreds of dollars less than is required to buy that basket. That means that they are not getting enough food. We live in a country now where the average paycheck cannot pay the average rent. So nobody is smiling when they look at their paycheck, Madam Minister. She goes on to ask, do you want to live in a country where kids go to school hungry? Well, according to the Prime Minister, 1 in 4 kids are going to school hungry after his 9 years. I look here at a press release that his government released on April the 1st, April Fool's Day of all days, where he says nearly 1 in 4 children do not get enough food. In fact, it says that they don't get enough food to learn and grow. So no, we don't want to live in a country where kids go to school hungry. But according to his own press release, We do live in a country where 1 in 4 kids do go to school hungry. She then says, do you want to live in a country where young Canadians, where only young Canadians who can buy their own homes are, the only young Canadians who can buy their own homes are those whose parents can help with a down payment? Madam Speaker, no, we don't want to live in that country, but we do live in that country today.
Hey, Joan, what's up? Good
According
to see
to
you.
data released by
Sheila, what's up?
RBC
Always?
Dominion, for the average family
Red
to
pill?
afford monthly payments on the average home in Canada, they would have to spend 64% of their pre-tax income. Most families don't keep 64% of pre-tax income because they pay so much taxes. So for most families, they would have to give up on eating, on recreation, on clothing themselves, on transportation, to be mathematically capable of making payments on the average home. So the young people, for them it's even worse because they do not have a nest egg. They cannot actually afford a down payment that has doubled in the last 9 years. And that is why 76% of Canadians who don't own homes tell pollsters they believe they never will. So, Madam Minister, do we want to live in a country where the only young people who can afford a down payment are those whose parents can pay it for them? No, but that is the country we live in today. Do you want to live in a country where we make the investments we need in healthcare, in housing and old age pensions, but we lack the political will to pay for them and choose instead to pass a ballooning debt onto our children? Like, are we living in the Twilight Zone here? Yes. This is her words. Do we want to live in a country where we pass the bill onto our children with ballooning debt, she asks, as she's ballooning the debt, adding $40 billion to the debt as she gives a speech about the perils of passing on ballooning debt to our children, as she is the finance minister for the government that has added more debt than all previous governments combined in the preceding century and a half. It's worth noting that the Prime Minister has added his deficits as a share of GDP.
Pickles? Good day, how are
were
you?
bigger than we had in World War I, in the Great Depression, in the great global recession of 2008 and 9. And I should also note that the majority of debt that has been added under this Prime Minister was unrelated to COVID. So the dog ate my homework excuse of blaming COVID for all of that is wrong in Canada no longer works. I will add that we are now 3 years past COVID, and the deficits and debt continue to grow, putting a lie to that entire endless, nauseating excuse that the government has made. This Prime Minister has added so much debt that we are now spending more on interest for that debt than we are on health care. $54.1 billion in debt interest this year, more money for those wealthy bankers and bondholders who own our debt, and less money for the doctors and nurses that we await when we sit for 26 hours in the average emergency room right across this country. Madam Speaker, no, we do not want to live in a country that passes on a ballooning debt to our children, but after 9 years of this Prime Minister, that is exactly the country we live in. Do you want to live in a country where those at the very top live lives of luxury? Who does that remind you of?
I wonder who.
No, look at us.
Our PM, Justin
Who
Trudeau.
flies around in a private jet to stay on secret islands on
Thanks,
other
Eric.
sides, on
That's
the other
awesome.
side
Cool,
of the
man.
hemisphere, where
Appreciate it.
they
It's
treat
awesome.
him to $8,000 and
Amazing. Come back and watch some of the
$9,000
other
a
shows.
day
We have a
luxuries.
great time here.
And he pays for it with the tax dollars of Canadians and emits thousands of tons of greenhouse gases into our atmosphere. Somebody luxuriates in that way at the expense of everyone else, and he shall remain unnamed, because we cannot say the Prime Minister's name in the House of Commons, so I will not break that parliamentary rule. But I do point out the irony. But we must live in gated communities. So I'll start again. Do you want to live in a country where those at the very top live lives of luxury, but most do so in gated communities, behind ever higher fences, using private health care and airplanes, because the public sphere is so degraded and the wrath of the majority of their less privileged compatriots burns so hot? Wow. She says that the wrath of the majority of the less privileged compatriots burns so hot. Madam Speaker, she's right that some people don't have the ability to live in gated communities behind armed guards. Those people are told that they should leave the keys next to the doors so that the car thieves can just walk in and peacefully steal their cars. Madam Speaker, you go to the communities across this country that are being ravaged by crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder. What she describes is exactly what is happening after 9 years of this government. We have nurses in British Columbia hospitals that are terrified to go to work because this Prime Minister, in collusion with the NDP Premier of BC, has decriminalized hard drugs and allowed the worst criminals to bring weapons and narcotics into their hospital rooms where they can't be confronted. We have 26 international students crammed into the basement of one Brampton home. We have a car stolen every 40 minutes in the GTA. We have 100% increase in gun killings across this country. Madam Speaker, we have communities where people who are terrified to go out. We have small businesses across Brampton and Surrey that are receiving letters weekly warning them that if they don't write checks for millions of dollars to extortionists, their homes will be shot up and their children will have bullets fly through the windows of as they are sleeping. That is life in Canada today. So do we want to live in that country? No, we don't want to live into that country. And after 8 years of rising costs, rising crime, and rising chaos, this Prime Minister is not worth the cost, and we will replace him with a common sense Conservative government that will bring home the country of love. So what does that country look like, and how are we going to get there? Fortunately, we have a common sense plan that will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. Let's start with the tax, the carbon tax, that it went up 23% on April 1st. Now we see the raging gas prices at the pumps across Ontario. Chaos as people are trying desperately to get to the pumps and fill up before the latest hikes go ahead. And this Prime Minister celebrates, saying that high gas prices are his purpose, and he has the full support of the NDP leader on most days when the NDP leader can figure out what his policy is. The NDP leader has voted 22 times to hike the carbon tax, and both parties have, along with the help of the Bloc, voted for future increases that will quadruple the tax to 61 cents a litre, a tax that will also apply on home heating bills, and of course a tax that applies on the farmers who produce the food and the truckers who ship the food, therefore on all who buy the food. That's why common sense Conservatives will axe the tax to bring home lower prices. We take exactly the opposite approach of this Prime Minister when it comes to protecting our environment. His approach is to raise the cost on traditional energy we still need. Our approach is to lower the cost on other alternatives. We
Boomer
will
Media,
greenlight green
what's up?
projects like nuclear power, hydroelectric
I've got some people
dams,
telling me you're a
carbon
cool
capture
person,
and
so
storage,
I believe them.
mining of critical minerals like lithium, cobalt, copper, and others. We will do this by repealing the unconstitutional Bill C-69 so that we can approve these projects in 18 months rather than in 18 years. Here's the difference. He wants taxes. I want technology. He wants to drive our money to the dirty dictators abroad. I want to bring it home in powerful paychecks for our
Thanks,
people
Eric.
in this
That's
country.
awesome. Appreciate it. It's very kind.
And the same approach that will allow us to unleash energy abundance and affordability is the approach we will take to build the homes. That is to say, getting the government gatekeepers out of the way. Why do we have the worst housing inflation in the G7 after 9 years of this Prime Minister? Why have housing costs risen 40% faster than paychecks? By far the worst gap of any G7 country. Why did UBS say Toronto was the worst housing bubble in the world, Vancouver the third most overpriced when comparing median income to median house price, according to Demographia? Why? Because we have the worst bureaucracy when it comes to home building. After 9 years of this Prime Minister, Canada has the second slowest building permits out of nearly 40 OECD countries. These permitting costs add $1.3 million to the cost of every newly built home in Vancouver, $350,000 to every newly built home in Toronto. Winnipeg blocked 2,000 homes next to a transit station that was built for those homes. The city of Montreal has blocked 25,000 homes in the last 7 years. And there are literally hundreds of thousands of homes that are waiting to be built but are locked up in slow permitting processes. And what do we have as a solution? Well, the Prime Minister has taken
Chili Bean, that's enough.
the worst
Thank you. I don't know what to
immigration
say. It's
minister in
okay.
our country's history.
We're just having fun
The guy
watching
that the
Canadian
Prime Minister
politics.
blamed for causing out-of-control temporary immigration to balloon housing prices and put him in charge of housing. Now, since that time, that minister has said that his Housing Accelerator Fund of $4 billion doesn't actually build any homes. And since he's doled out all of this cash to political friends in incompetent city halls across this country, home building has dropped. In fact, home building is down this year, and according to the federal government's housing agency, it will be down next year, and again the year after that. That is a housing decelerator, not accelerator. So that's what happens when you choose a minister because he's a media darling and a fast talker, rather than someone who gets things done, as I did when I was housing minister and the rent was only $973 a month for the average family right across the country, and the average house price was roughly $400,000. That's results. There was less talk, there was less government spending, but far more homes. And that's what our common sense plan will do again. Build the homes by requiring municipalities speed up, permit more land, and more building faster. They will be required to permit 15% more homes per year as a condition of getting federal funding, and to permit high-rise apartments around every federally funded transit station. We will sell off 6,000 federal buildings and thousands of acres of federal land to build. We'll get rid of the carbon tax to lower the cost of building materials. And finally, we will reward the working people who build homes, because we need more boots, not more suits. We'll pass the common sense conservative law that allows trades workers to write off the full cost of transportation, food, and accommodation to go from one work site to another so that they can build the homes while bringing home paychecks for themselves. Madam Speaker.
He does take a little
will
break
be
there.
in safe neighborhoods. We will stop the crime. We will stop
Joe
the crime
Smith? How are you?
by making repeat violent
Red Rose, good
offenders
day.
ineligible for bail, parole, or house arrest. That will mean no more catch and release. We will repeal C5, the house arrest law. We will repeal C75, the catch and release law. And we will repeal C83,
What's up?
the cushy living for multiple murderers law that allows Paul Bernardo to enjoy tennis courts and skating rinks that most Canadian tax-paying families can no longer afford outside of prison. We will bring in jail, not bail for repeat violent offenders. We will repeal, in fact, the entire the catch and release criminal justice agenda that this radical Prime Minister, with the help of the loony left NDP, has brought in, Madam Speaker. The radical agenda that has turned many of our streets into war zones will be a thing of a past. We will also stop giving out deadly narcotics. We now, remember when I made a video about the so-called safe supply. I went to the tragic site of yet another homeless encampment in Vancouver, which used to be one of the most beautiful views in that spot in the entire world. Right now has been, unfortunately, a place where people live in squalor and where they die of overdoses. And everyone said it was just terrible that I was planning to take away the tax-funded drugs, and that all of the claims I made were just a bunch of conspiracy theories. Well, everything I said then has been proven accurate, every word of it. And I noticed that Liberals and the pointy-headed professors that they relied on for their policies have all gone into hiding as well. Why? Because the facts are now coming out. Even the public health agency in British Columbia, which has been pushing this NDP Liberal ideology, is admitting that the tax-funded hydromorphine is being diverted. The police in Vancouver said this week that 50% of all the high-powered hydromorphine opioids are paid for with tax dollars and given out by public health agencies, Madam Speaker, supposedly to save lives. Now we know that those very powerful drugs are being resold to children who are getting hooked on them, and the profits are being used to buy even more dangerous fentanyl and tranq and other drugs that are leaving our people face first on the pavement dying of record overdoses. The so-called experts that always say, ignore the bumper stickers, look at the facts. Well, the facts are in British Columbia, where this radical and incomparable policy has been most enthusiastically embraced. Overdose deaths are up 300%. They have risen in BC faster than anywhere else in Canada and possibly anywhere else in North America. The state of Oregon, the ultra-progressive state of Oregon, has reversed decriminalization, recognizing the total chaos and death and destruction that the policy has caused. And what does this Prime Minister, this radical Prime Minister, with the help of his NDP counterpart do? They look at the death and destruction that has occurred in the downtown east side of Vancouver and in other communities, and they say, let's have more of that. Let's take that. They took a walk down the downtown east side, or better yet, they probably drove through in their limousines, their bulletproof limousines, these two politicians did. And they said, and they looked around at the people bent over as they were completely tranquilized by fentanyl. They saw the people lying face first on the ground. They saw the tents that the police would have pointed out are filled with dangerous guns and drugs. They saw all the small businesses that were shuttered by this policy, and they said, let's have more of that. Let's replicate all the policies that created it so that we can have tent cities and homeless encampments in every corner of the country. And that is exactly what they've done. In Halifax, there are 35 homeless encampments. in one city, Madam Speaker, after
Christy, what's up?
9 years of this Prime Minister, his NDP counterpart, and the Liberal Mayor of Halifax. Look at every town in this country. You will find homeless encampments that never existed before the last 9 years. This policy will go down in infamy as one of the most insane experiments ever carried out on a population. Nowhere else in the world are they doing this. This is like they gaslight. They love to say, "Oh, this is what all the civilized people believe, is that giving out these drugs will save lives." Nowhere else in the world is this done. In fact, when you tell people that it's happening, they have a hard time even believing it. What? Sorry, you're giving out heroin-grade drugs for free to addicts and expecting it's going to save lives? And now they spill into our hospitals, where nurses are told by the NDP government in BC and the Liberal government in Ottawa that they are not allowed to take away crack pipes or knives or guns. They're just supposed to expect someone is going to consume the drugs, have a massive fit, and start slashing up the hospital floor. Madam Speaker, this is something out of a bad hallucination, and a hallucination that will come to an end when I am Prime Minister. We will end this nightmare. And we will, Madam Speaker, we will also ensure that Canadians have a better way.
Hi, Patricia. How are you?
We're not only going to ban the drugs, we're not only going to stop giving out taxpayer-funded drugs. We are going to provide treatment and recovery. If you were out there, if you were watching today and you're suffering from addiction and you don't know how you can turn your life around, I want you to know that there is hope. There is a better future ahead. We will put the money into beautiful treatment centers with counseling, group therapy, physical exercise, yoga, sweat lodges for First Nations, where people can graduate drug-free, live in nearby housing that helps them transition into a law-abiding drug-free life, come back to the center to get a counseling session, a workout, or maybe even to mentor an incoming addict on the hopeful future that is ahead. That is the way that we are going to bring our loved ones home drug-free. As I always say, we are going to have a common sense dollar for dollar law requiring that we find $1 of savings for every new dollar of spending. And in this case, that will include how we will partly pay for this. We will unleash the biggest lawsuit in Canadian history against the corrupt pharmaceutical companies that profited off of this nightmare. We will make them pay.
Here.
Finally, we will stop the gun crime. We know, Madam Speaker, the gun crime is out of control. Just yesterday, we saw this gold heist where we found out that by the way, all the gold thieves, they're out on bail already. Not to worry. They'll have to send this Prime Minister a nugget of gold to thank him for passing C-75 and letting them out of jail within a few days of this monster gold heist. We knew that why did they steal the gold? So that they could buy the guns. Because we know that all the gun crime is happening with stolen guns. See, the Prime Minister wants to ban all civilian law-abiding people from owning guns, but he wants to allow every criminal to have as many guns as they want. And I'm not just talking about rifles. I'm talking about machine guns, fully loaded machine guns that are being found on the street that never existed since they were banned in the 70s. But now the criminals can get them because the Prime Minister has mismanaged the federal borders and ports, and because he's wasting so much money going after the good guys. He wants to ban your hunting rifle. He said so in a December 2022 interview with CTV. It was very clear. If you have a hunting rifle, he said he will have to take it away. And he kept his word by introducing a 300-page amendment to his Bill C-21, which would have banned 300 pages of the most popular and safe hunting rifles he only put that policy on hold because of a backlash that common sense conservatives led that included rural Canadians, First Nations Canadians, NDPers from rural communities like yours, Madam Speaker, had to flip-flop. I know that in places like Kapuskasing, the law-abiding people enjoy hunting, and we know that while your leader and the Prime Minister look down on those people and think that they are to blame for crime, we know that the hunters in Kapuskasing are the salt of the earth. They're the best people around, and we're going to make sure that they can keep their hunting right. God love them. God love them. God love every one of them. Madam Speaker, while the Prime Minister wants to protect turkeys from hunters, common sense conservatives want to protect Canadians from criminals. And that is why we will repeal his insane policies. By the way, I should point out, he hasn't actually done any of the bans. Remember, he had that big press conference during the election, and he said to his policy team that morning, I need you to come up with a policy that will allow me to put a big, scary-looking black gun on my podium sign. And then they said, okay, we'll think of something. And he put that scary-looking gun on his podium sign. And he said, well, I'm going to ban all of these assault rifles. Well, they asked him, what is an assault rifle? He said, well, I don't know, but it's that black, scary thing on the front of my podium sign is the assault rifle we're referring to.
Hell?
And all these years later, it's now, was it 3 years later since he made the promise? He was asked again in the hallways, what is an assault rifle? Well, I'm still working to figure it out, he says. So these rifles that he says he's going to ban one day, he doesn't know what they are, but one day he's going to figure it out and he's going to ban them. In the meantime, he has spent $40 million to buy exactly 0 guns from owners. He said that he was going to ban them and buy them from the owners. Not one gun has been taken off the street. $40 million. Madam Speaker, we could have used that money to hire CBSA officers who would have secured our ports against the thousands of illegal guns that are pouring in and killing people on our streets. When I'm Prime Minister, we will cancel this multi-billion-dollar waste of money. We will use it to hire frontline boots on the ground who will inspect those shipping containers and scanners that can pierce inside to stop the drugs, stop the illegal guns, stop the export of our stolen cars, stop the crime. Madam Speaker, what you're seeing here is a very different philosophical approach. The finance minister said in her concluding remarks that what we need is a bigger and stronger government. Doesn't that sound eerie?
We need more government. How many levels of government are you expected to pay for?
Want to be bigger and stronger. That's right. Yeah. Right? And that's why they're always trying to make Canadians feel weaker and smaller. He literally called our people a small, fringe minority. He jabs his fingers in the faces of our citizens. He calls small businesses tax cheats. He claims hunters are just Americans. If you own a hunting rifle, you're just an American. He points his fingers at people who disagree with him. He has the audacity of claiming anyone who is offside with him is a racist. This guy who dressed up in racist costumes so many times, he can't remember them all. He's been denigrating other people his whole life. That's because it's all about him. It's all about concentrating more power and more money in his hands. This budget is no different. It's about a bigger government and smaller citizens. It's about buying his way through the next election with cash that the working class people have earned and he has burned. By contrast, I want the opposite. I want smaller government to make room for bigger citizens. I want a state that is a servant and not the master. I want a country where the Prime Minister actually lives up to the meaning of the word. Prime, first, minister, servant. That's what minister means. Minister is not master, minister is servant. We need a country that puts people back in charge of their money, their communities,
Hi, Florette.
their
What's up?
families,
How are you?
and their lives.
It's a nice name.
A country based on the common sense of the common people, united for our common home. Your home, my home, our home. Let's bring it home. Thank you. And so I move, seconded by the member for Mégantic-L'Érable, that the motion be amended by deleting all words after the word that and substituting the following. The House reject the government's budget since it fails to A, axe the tax on farmers and food by passing Bill C-234 in its original form. B, build the homes, not bureaucracy, by requiring cities permit 15% more home building each year as a condition for receiving federal infrastructure money. C, cap the spending with a dollar-for-dollar rule to bring down interest rates and inflation by requiring the government to find $1 in savings for every new dollar of spending. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
All right, guys. So now we're going to twist into something different, what do we have up next?
I seem to understand that the decriminalization of simple possession has had more positive impacts than negative impacts.
Continuing today.
But either here, let's give us just a moment and to figure this out. This is what we want to do. I know this is a video that I put out just the other day, but I think it makes me feel good when I watch it. So we're gonna watch it. No, not if. Oh, come on. This is it. I find this is.
District of Durham.
Mr. Speaker, it is an honor to present to you Jamil Jivani, the honorable member for Durham. He has taken the oath, signed the roll, and now takes the right to claim his seat.
Honorable member, take his seat.
Hey gang, what's up? Just Ehren right here, Question Period Canada. So I had no idea what was going on the other day when they were introducing a new member to the House of Parliament. But my, oh my, this Jamil Jivani, he is something else, guys. In his introduction to the House that he was making on behalf of himself, it was incredible, man. Let's check out this video. We get to know him pretty well. I get the feeling politicians are hard to trust. I like this guy, though. Let's take a look at what he's saying, see if it makes any sense to you.
Honourable member for Durham.
Madam Speaker, I rise in the chamber today as Canada's newest Member of Parliament, elected to represent the riding of Durham. And I have a very clear message to deliver on behalf of my community in Durham. We are tired of the Prime Minister's broken promises. We are tired of the Prime Minister promising to fix this and fix that, and in return what we receive is a life that is harder and more expensive. Madam Speaker, we believe that Canadians deserve better, and we believe that the topic of debate today, pharmacare, is just the latest example of the Prime Minister promising big things only to disappoint the people of Canada. Now, I put my name on a ballot, and I wanted this job as Member of Parliament because despite the Prime Minister's best efforts, I am optimistic and hopeful about the future of this country. I believe that once we have a new leader in this great land, we will see brighter days ahead. And my optimism does not come from these big deficits or these big budget announcements. My optimism comes from my knowledge of the people of Canada and the people of Durham. My optimism comes from people like Kirk Kemp, who runs one of the biggest and most important agricultural businesses in Canada, Algoma Orchards. And as he becomes more successful in his business, he only gives back more to our community, supporting initiatives like the Bowmanville Hospital redevelopment. My optimism comes from people like Dr. Khan Chandra, a dentist in Curtis, Ontario, who has built a tremendous business, provides for his family, and gives back to our community as a connector for Durham's growing Tamil community. And my optimism comes from Kim and Leon Morrow over on Taunton Road East in Oshawa, who scrape together every spare dollar they can find in every spare moment to provide guidance and mentorship to young men and women who may otherwise fall into the pitfalls that await struggling youth. But Kim and Leon have their backs, and that is why I'm hopeful about the future of this country. You see, Madam Speaker, I'm very honored to stand here in this beautiful building, and I appreciate the chance to dress up in a suit and a tie. But my heart was not shaped in places like this. My heart was shaped by people like my grandfather, Robert McFarland, rest in peace. My grandfather, who worked as a school custodian for decades in the Toronto District School Board. A man who swept the floors and mopped the floors, who kept the classrooms tidy, who locked up at the end of the night so that children had a place to learn and teachers had a place to work. And I carry his story with me. I come into this job very much a servant, like my grandpa. I am here to protect what makes this country special, to protect the rights and freedoms of Canadians, to make sure that this country continues to be a place where people from all over the world can come and find a better life. People like my grandpa, who came here from Scotland, my grandmother, who came here from Ireland, and my father, who came here from Kenya. Now, I am aware that there is a liberal playbook that gets used against people who disagree with this Prime Minister. A playbook that likes to marginalize and vilify anyone who has the audacity to stand up and say what is happening in this country right now is not right. And that playbook the Prime Minister likes to use, likes to cast people who disagree with him as racists. And I would be welcoming the Prime Minister to try that with me. You know, based on our history, I don't think that's going to go so well for him. But I also believe that he is completely out of touch with the needs and desires, the hopes and dreams of our very diverse country and the diverse communities like the one I represent in Durham. He's welcome to take his claims that people who disagree with him are racist to my African father and see how that goes for him. He also uses this liberal playbook to marginalize and vilify Canadians who disagree with him by calling those of us who believe in traditional family values bigots. And I say to him, come to my riding, my diverse riding in Durham, and try that on us, where we have Christians and Muslims, Sikhs, Hindus, and Jews living together, all people who believe that mothers and fathers matter. He's welcome to try that with us. And I know his liberal playbook also likes to say that people who disagree with him don't care about the working class or don't care about vulnerable people. And I don't think that's going to work on me either. I am not a trust fund baby. Like most people in this country, I have clawed and I have scraped and worked hard for everything that I have. I don't think the Prime Minister can say the same thing. And the reality is this. He's welcome to try that message on people like my mom. She'd love to have a conversation with him. A woman who raised 3 children by herself. 68 years old, sorry mom. Continues to work hard every day because she cannot afford to retire in this NDP liberal economy. The liberal playbook is not going to work. They can try their greatest hits. Tune up the guitar. Tune up the banjo. The greatest hits aren't hitting anymore. And I'm here to deliver that message very, very clearly on behalf of my community in Durham and anyone else in this great country who is unhappy with what is happening and frustrated to feel like they are not able to say what is happening in their hearts and their minds, do not feel validated and affirmed by the reality they experience, not being echoed by many of the institutions across this country who have bought into a narrative that simply does not reflect reality. Now, with the remainder of my time, I'd like to also deliver a message to any young men and young women across this country who might hear my words. My presence in this chamber is a glitch in the system. I'm not supposed to be here. When I was 15 years old, I failed the Ontario literacy test. I was labeled illiterate by the Ontario education system. But I'm here. At the age of 30, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I sat in a recliner with an IV in my arm pumping my body with chemotherapy drugs. I laid on a hospital bed as radiation lasers ran along my spine for months. But I'm here. I took on woke censorship from corporate Canada, looked them dead in the eye, and I'm here. And I've been the subject of hit piece after hit piece from liberal news media. And guess what? I'm here. Yeah. The reality is that many young men and young women are facing a variety of challenges across this country right now, some of whom are facing things that I can't even fathom. But as long as I stand in the House of Commons, as long as I'm honored to call myself a member of Parliament, I hope that I can be a walking, talking reminder that you should never give up. Don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on your family. Don't give up on your community. And don't give up on this country. And as long as I'm here, I won't give up on them either. Thank you.
Great job.
So Jamil Jivani is going to certainly be one to
Speaker, it's not me that's doing personal or partisan attacks against this Prime Minister's agenda. It's his fellow Liberals and New Democrats. It's his coalition partner who simultaneously attacks everything he does and then enthusiastically stands up to support it. It's the Prime Minister who attacks his immigration minister for letting the system get completely out of control and then attacks himself for doubling housing costs, making life so unfair. If they're so busy attacking themselves and their own record, why don't they just call a carbon tax election so Canadians can vote them out?
Young people see right through this Prime Minister. They know they're getting ripped off, and they know the reason for it. Today, rent has doubled, grocery prices are sky high, and we're paying some of the highest cell phone bills in the world. The reason is because of corporate greed. This Prime Minister refuses to take it on, and the Conservatives, they're afraid anytime we mention corporate greed because they want to defend those corporations. So when will the Liberals finally take on...
Hey gang, what's up? Just Ehren right here, Question Period Canada. Another lovely day in Nova Scotia. How y'all doing? Is the NDP Liberal coalition breaking down? It sounds like it's right there. Jagmeet never has anything positive to say about Trudeau, and it goes the other way. Trudeau has nothing good to say about Jagmeet. The other way too. It doesn't seem like those bonds, that tie, that coalition, is going to survive Pierre Poilievre. Poilievre is fighting for Canadians, trying to get us an election. That is what Canadians want. We just want to vote. I do. See where people are standing, see what kind of changes we can make. Anyhow, we're going to jump to the House of Commons floor and watch these three battle each other. Poilievre comes out on top. Trudeau does not seem sincere. Jagmeet does seem sincere, but we know by now he's probably fake. Let's jump to the floor. Let's take a peek at what's been going on in Parliament.
Leader of the Opposition.
Who pays? That's right. Who pays for this latest $50 billion orgy of spending by this costly Prime Minister? We know who won't pay. It won't be those with trust funds that protect their millions of inheritance like the Prime Minister, nor the billionaires that invite him to their private Caribbean islands. They'll hide their money. You know who will pay? You will pay. You, the welder or waitress who can't pay your mortgage because he's inflated the mortgage rates. You will pay because he carbon taxed your food and now you can't feed your kids. Why should you pay for him?
my comment still applies. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it is interesting to see the lengths to which the Leader of the Opposition will go to avoid saying that he is choosing to stand with the ultra-wealthy against the middle class, against young Canadians. When we first got elected and raised taxes on the wealthiest 1% to lower them for the middle class, the Conservative Party and that leader voted against it. We're asking for the wealthiest in this country, the wealthiest 0.1%, to pay more in taxes so we can support the middle class, so we can restore the dream, particularly for young people, of home ownership, of a brighter future that the world is taking away from people all over the world.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister likes to blame the world for the problems that he caused. He doubled the debt, doubled the rent, doubled mortgage payments, doubled the needed down payment. And now he's doubling down on the same costly mistakes that have made life unaffordable for Canadians. When will this Prime Minister realize that he's not worth the cost and that repeating the same thing 9 times and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, what the Leader of the Opposition is saying is that he stands with the ultra-wealthy 0.1% in this country, and everyone else is on their own, because that's what he would do as he slashes programs, as he slashes investments, as he doesn't build the homes necessary, as he doesn't have a plan to fight climate change and create good jobs, as he has stood against affordability measures, as he stands against seniors getting dental care, Mr. Speaker. He is choosing to stand with the ultra-wealthy while we are investing in Canadians and building a stronger future that is fair for everyone.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he is the ultra-wealthy. He hid his family fortune in a tax-sheltered trust fund so he wouldn't have to pay the same tax as everyone else. He vacations with the ultra-wealthy on their private islands in tax-preferred locations where they can hide their money and avoid paying their fair share here in Canada. And now he's paying off the ultra-wealthy by spending $54 billion on debt interest, more than on health care. Why give more money to the ultra-wealthy bankers and bondholders instead of the nurses and doctors?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, this is a budget that invests in fairness for every generation by asking the ultra-wealthy to pay a little more. And, Mr. Speaker, the Conservative Party is choosing to stand with the status quo, stand with the ultra-wealthy, instead of saying, yes, we need to invest in young people. We need to build more houses. We need to support seniors with dental care. We need to create more spaces in childcare. We need to deliver hundreds of dollars a month tax-free in a disability benefit. These are the things we will be doing. Those are the things that they stand against.
Well, gang, here's a special treat. In one clip, we're going to have both that fool, Greg Fergus, and another goof, Jagmeet, trying to fool Canadians, it would seem. And I don't know what this Greg Fergus is up to. He's a waste of time.
Young people see right through this Prime Minister. They know they're getting ripped off, and they know the reason for it. Today, rent is doubled, grocery prices are sky high, and we're paying some of the highest cell phone bills in the world. The reason is because of corporate greed. This Prime Minister refuses to take it on, and the Conservatives, they're afraid anytime we mention corporate greed because they want to defend those corporations. So when will the Liberals finally take on...
There are some members in this place who, like the Speaker, had difficulty hearing the member from Burnaby South finish or ask his question. So I'm going to ask the Honourable Member from Burnaby South to start again his question, but I'm going to ask all members on all sides of the House to please hold yourselves until you have the opportunity to be recognized by the Speaker to ask your question or to answer the question. The Honourable Member from Burnaby South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know what happens. Anytime I take on corporate greed, the Conservatives get really upset because we're taking on their masters, so they get upset about it. But I'll be careful not to say too much because I know the Conservatives get so angry when we mention corporate greed. But what happens is young people are seeing they're getting ripped off with rent, they're getting ripped off with groceries, getting ripped off with the high cost of cell phone fees, and they know it's because of corporate greed. The Conservatives don't want me to talk about this, but will the Liberals take on corporate greed, which is driving up the cost of living?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we recognize with this budget that Canada cannot be successful unless young people are successful, unless every generation sees a real and fair chance to succeed. And that's why we're stepping up to invest in new homes that young people are going to be able to afford, in making sure that their rent payments count towards a credit score to get them a mortgage eventually. We're investing in more support for Canadians living with disabilities. We're investing in supports for seniors. We're investing in entrepreneurship for young people. We're making the kinds of investments that are going to grow the economy, support young people, and restore the dream of a stronger Canada for everyone.
Something very wrong when a Prime Minister doesn't have a problem keeping the Conservatives' $60 billion corporate handout, but denies Indigenous children the dignity of safe housing and decent schools, and the communities the same access to good roads and clean water. How can the Prime Minister look Indigenous people in the eyes after putting the greed of CEOs in front of the need of Indigenous families?
Hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we've continued to step up over the past years for reconciliation and investing in Indigenous communities. This budget has put aside $1 billion more on top of all the investments we've made for Indigenous housing. That's part of the $9 billion investments we're talking about for Indigenous communities over the coming years. We know there's always more to do, but we will be there hand in hand with Indigenous communities and leadership to make sure we're closing the gaps and building the strong future that is part of the journey of reconciliation.
All right, so we're back to Poilievre and Trudeau. Poilievre has always got great punches to throw at Trudeau. Trudeau's such a goof, guys. Like, when he's talking to Canadians, do you trust a word coming out of that guy's mouth? I don't.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, it's not me that's doing personal or partisan attacks against this Prime Minister's agenda. It's his fellow Liberals and New Democrats. It's his coalition partner who simultaneously attacks everything he does and then enthusiastically stands up to support it. It's the Prime Minister who attacks his immigration minister for letting the system get completely out of control and then attacks himself for doubling housing costs, making life so unfair. If they're so busy attacking themselves and their own record, why don't they just call a carbon tax election so Canadians can vote them out?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker.
Excuse me. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this government is making the choice to invest in a fairer future for all Canadians, for every generation. That is the choice we're making. Now, the Conservatives are continuing to choose to stand with the wealthiest in this country, choose to do less to invest in childcare, less to invest in solving the housing crisis, less to support young people across the country who need to feel the opportunities they can build in the future again. We will continue to be there to put money in the pockets of Canadians, to put homes in their communities, to build a stronger future for them and their families, while the Conservatives continue to promote cuts and austerity.
That's right.
So, gang, what do you think? Is the NDP Liberal coalition breaking down? Is the stress too much for Trudeau and Jagmeet to remain comfortable bedfellows? It would seem like they're having spats. Whatever, that's fine. I just want an election. How do you feel about that? Would an election suit what you want? We need to get rid of Trudeau, guys. He's dragging us down. Jagmeet helping him, but telling us all the time that he's fighting and resisting Trudeau and they don't do anything. The NDP has lost its place. My goodness. My name's Ehren. This is Question Period Canada. I do hope the NDP Liberal coalition breaks down and we get an election. Come and check out one of our live shows. We watch all the Question Period. We broadcast that stuff together and have a great community, a fun chat room. Come check out one of the live shows. I think you'll like it, as we're all learning more about Canadian federal politics. That's it. Like, subscribe, share, get notified, all that fun stuff. Check out one of the other videos floating around here. I'm Ehren. You have a great day. I'm going to get busy here and get ready to put on this live show. Come and join us. That's it. We'll catch you next video. Thanks for watching this one. Stay warm. Hey everybody, what's up? Ehren here, Question Period Canada. How are you today? Great episode coming up. It's the coalition is breaking down. There's been so many coalitions. Now there's the new Bloc Québécois coalition with the Liberals. The initial coalition with the NDP, it's breaking down though. Jagmeet goes at Trudeau pretty hard. Trudeau responds. Jagmeet goes again. Trudeau responds. Then Poilievre steps in, makes fun of the whole thing, the coalition between the NDP and the Liberals, and he sets Trudeau off. Trudeau loses it. It's fun at the end. Let's take a peek at how Jagmeet goes at Trudeau first. Let's take a look.
South.
The Liberal and Conservative corporate coalition may strike again today. We put forward a plan to help Canadians with their home heating bill, to help Canadians tackle the climate crisis and make big oil and gas pay for it. Now, environmental organizations are on board, but climate delay Liberals and climate deny Conservatives will back the profits of big oil again. So how can the Prime Minister and the leader of the Conservative Party justify voting against this?
Hear, hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it was with confusion and consternation that I noted the way the NDP voted with the Conservatives against one of the most successful measures Canada has ever seen in the fight against climate change. Putting a price on pollution is exactly how we've managed to bend the curve on our emissions faster than other G7 countries over the past 2 years. How we are moving forward with global leadership on the fight against climate change. Seeing the NDP vote with the Conservatives against a price on pollution is something that has disappointed millions of progressives across this country.
That right there is one of the issues that I have with the coalition government. How can they be having these lovers' quarrels, strange political bedfellow coalition? It doesn't make any sense, and now they're spatting. It's embarrassing. It happens again, though. Jagmeet asks Trudeau more questions.
Burnaby South.
People are struggling to find a home they can afford. And this federal government has the power, the land, and the resources to end the housing crisis. On one side, we've got the corporate-controlled Conservatives that want to sell off our public land to their rich investor friends that helps no one. But on the other side, we've got Liberals who are openly admitting that their plan is to use public lands to build luxury homes. How can this Prime Minister justify using public lands to build homes that people can't afford?
Hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, that's simply not true. We know Canadians are worried about paying their rent, finding an apartment, or buying a home. That's why we're working on affordable housing and affordable housing affordability right across the country. It's why we put forward the Affordable Housing and Groceries Act, which helps build more affordable apartments by cutting the GST on construction. Housing advocates and developers have described this move as a game changer that will get more affordable housing built. It's why it's essential that all members work with us to move these important measures forward.
Politics makes for strange bedfellows, doesn't it? I don't understand what is going on with these coalition governments, how they can do it. You're supposed to stand up for your party, not get together with the other parties. I don't understand. It's just weird, isn't it? Trudeau doesn't like the pressure that Jagmeet's putting on him, but Poilievre is going to make fun of that and then deliver another question, and Trudeau completely loses it, flips out, doesn't answer the question, but gives some speech, and it doesn't feel like it fits. I'm concerned about our leadership in the country. Look for yourself. I think you'll be concerned too. It's kind of funny, but like, that's our leader.
Then I have Chef.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Most tragic and heartbreaking to see these two squabbling in this way. The Prime Minister was so disappointed in the NDP leader's flip-flop on carbon tax for heat, but the good news for the Prime Minister is the NDP leader has flip-flopped on his flip-flop and now supports the Prime Minister's plan to quadruple the tax.
So he makes fun of them right there, as you saw. It's pretty funny, but then asks this question and Trudeau goes off. It has nothing to do with the question that was asked, the answer he gives. It's kind of funny, but it's kind of scary to see that our leader is behaving like this. Answer a question, buddy. Don't flip out.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister only divides to distract. That's all he ever does when he gets into trouble. He divides people along every possible battle line. He did that with the carbon tax carve-out for only some in a region where his support is plummeting and his caucus is revolting. And for 10 days, he refused to condemn the comments of his own Liberal minister who said this policy was applying based on how people voted. And now he signs on with the separatists to divide Canadians again. Will he, instead of dividing Canadians, reverse the policies that are driving them to the food bank?
I will admit that I wouldn't like being asked a question with that many insults in it, because Poilievre layers on the insults. But this answer that Trudeau gives right now, it makes no sense. He's talking about the transgender community and women's rights over their bodies. He was asking a question about food banks. Watch.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we see the Conservatives' approach to partisan politics and to personal attacks. The reality is, when we stood with the 80 to 90% of Canadians who chose to get vaccinated, they called us divisive. When we chose to stand with women across this country who want to control their own bodies, they called us divisive. When we stand with the 2 LGBTQI+ kids who are being discriminated against in schools across this country, they call us divisive, Mr. Speaker. I ask Canadians, who are dividing Canadians more than Conservatives with their attacks, with their choices, with their politics?
Okay, everybody, that's about where the video wraps each. It's just funny to see this. It kind of looks like
to partisan politics.
Fun. We'll catch you next video. Take care.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we see the Conservatives' approach to partisan politics and to personal attacks. The reality is, when we stood with the 80 to 90% of Canadians who chose to get vaccinated, they called us divisive. When we chose to stand with women across this country who want to control their own bodies, they called us divisive. When we stand with the 2 LGBTQI+ kids who are being discriminated against in schools across this country, they call us divisive, Mr. Speaker. I ask Canadians, who are dividing Canadians more than Conservatives with their attacks, with their choices, with their politics?
Yeah, so something different that we're going to try. You guys know that I've got a couple of moderators, like Sheila is the boss, Kirk helps us out, and that's how we roll it. But we're going to see if we can catch Kirk on Facebook, which this is pretty far outside of anything that I've ever tried before. But we are going to try it because I think that it will make a fun show wrap up. If I can figure out how to do it. Just stay with me here for a couple of seconds. We're going to see if Kirk's available. looks like.
Hey, Ehren.
Hi. So I'm just curious to see if our audio is working at all. Try to say something. No, that's not saying something. That's waving. Kirk, anything. Alphabet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No. We're gonna slip out of this, guys. Guys, I did not prepare Kirk enough for this drop in, and next time we'll have this ready to go, and it will be smooth. Do you have any audio though, Kirk? Say anything.
Hey, Ehren, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? You can't hear me?
Hey.
Yeah. So
I'm here.
Kirk can't hear me.
I'm here.
So we are going to try to wrap this up the right way, guys. Which would be
I can hear you.
Sorry, Kirk, I put you on the spot. My bad. Right now, our audio isn't connecting for some
got a very bad delay.
reason, which it was earlier. Weird. Anyways, guys, we're going to... sorry about that, Kirk. We're going to drop back into this. Sorry, gang.
It's very...
I'm trying to
very
close
here.
it off with our friends from the channel, and having comments and discussing the episode we just watched. I think that would be fun. I screwed up with Kirk right there, but I don't know why. I know that it's a simple sound setting that for some reason he couldn't hear my audio. I could hear his. That's the way it goes. Anyways, we're going to wrap this up. It's been a fun afternoon of hanging out. There's a bunch of new people in the chat room too, which is awesome to see. So much fun. We have something good here, guys. We're growing. We can watch this soap opera in peace together. Almost peace, except that, the politicians are there. That makes it tricky, but it's fine. We've got a couple of politicians that I do, that I kind of trust in and think that maybe they're going to bring us to a better place, back to online. We'll wait and see. My name's Ehren. This is Question Period Canada. We watch the question periods here together with what feels like a family is growing, man. You can come and check out one of the episodes. I don't mean to oversell it like that family bit. We don't use nasty language. We don't go at each other. We go at the politicians. That's it. Those are the rules. And it's not even like the rules. Those are the guidelines. We've got a couple of people that manage that stuff. Come to my chat room. You're going to have somebody acknowledge you, say hello, assured. And that's part of the community we're trying to build. Hello, welcome. Let's find out how to change this. My name's Ehren. Question Period Canada. Like, subscribe, all that foolishness. It's a blast. We have... Not all the politics is a blast, but you've got to watch it to know what's going on. And we are learning what's going on. That is how we're going to wrap this up. Thank you all so much for watching. It's been a great Monday. We'll catch you tomorrow. Same time, same place. Come and hang out. We really do have something great here that's happening. And come watch the soap opera with a bunch of like-minded people that just want change. That's what we're up to. Little change. All right. Take care. Have something healthy to eat. Try to stay warm. We're out for now. Tomorrow is going to be a different wrap-up. Wait and see. We'll see. All right. Ciao, guys. Thanks for watching.